What's in the Box episodes of horror with Donna and Eric. I'm Donna,
I'm Eric.
and we're doing another Texas Author Con and Book Festival interview. And with us today, we have Elaine Broun. Hello and welcome.
Thank you. Hello.
Welcome to the show. So, Elaine does not read or watch horror, so we're going to pivot our questions a little bit here for our icebreakers. And I've got a good question for you.
Okay.
All right.
All right. Who is your favorite James Bond?
Oh my God. I would, the first you can't beat, but I have to say Daniel Craig was pretty darn good.
No.
You don't like Daniel
But
Craig?
the first one,
Yeah.
Sean Connery will always be the man.
I'm going to assume with Donna that it's Roger Moore.
Roger Moore and Sean Connery.
Yeah, Roger Moore. I mean, that's
Roger
ours.
Moore, I loved him when I was in high school and stuff because um that was where that's where I actually started my love for all the action stuff and the suspense and that and became a suspense junkie, so to speak. But then afterwards, of course, when you run out of what's current, you start looking for more. And I started backtracking, and then I got to really appreciate his work, Sean's work. So yeah, it
And I mean, I don't think you can go wrong. Timothy Dalton's really good. I know a lot of people don't like those two movies, but I think his movies are pretty good.
he
They
did
tried to put
pretty
in,
good.
he's a good
Yeah,
Bond. Maybe the stories that they put him in weren't great, but he was a decent Bond. Pierce Brosnan's
yeah,
a great Bond. So, I mean, I don't think they
yeah.
went wrong. I'm shocked to hear that you don't like Daniel Craig as James Bond because those are some of the best movies, although they are some of the more, once you start getting farther into his library as James Bond, you can see where some of those
No,
movies
I
start to
loved
pull in.
him. That
Yeah,
I
but
loved
Donna,
him.
Donna
Yeah.
Yeah,
does not.
Donna.
That's why I'm
Yeah.
shocked.
I've
Uh,
actually never seen a Daniel Craig James Bond movie.
oh, okay. Well,
Oh,
then
well,
that's
So
you
I'm
different.
need to
like,
see
I
it.
just, I can't. I'm like old school. I grew up with like Jaws. I'll never forget Jaws on
Oh
the
yeah,
older one. So it was just, that's what I grew up with. That's what my parents watched. That's what we watched. So it's just hard
Yeah, I
for
mean those are
me.
my favorite, but Daniel
Yeah.
Craig's are really good.
oh
Especially
God,
like
yes,
Casino Royale. If you want to feel the
yes,
old school, I mean that feels the most like a Sean Connery movie, but I think it's 10 times better. I mean, it just because it's so modern and the way he
yeah,
handles everything, but he's got the style and the attitude of Sean
yeah.
Connery's Bond. And so
Yeah.
yeah, no, you got to watch some Daniel Craig.
I'll have to give him
But
I'll give him a try then, I suppose.
Yeah.
well, you also have to think about it. They got little scenes that they throw in that are so cool, like the guy at the gaming table and just the stress. He starts bleeding from the tear duct. I mean, that is just like so creepy, eerie, and yet it made the essence of the creepiness of the whole scene.
Yeah.
It was
It
pretty
added
neat.
something, a
Yeah,
layer to that villain, really
yeah,
kind of showed it actually humanizes the villain a little bit because he suffers from some disease that causes him to do that. So,
right,
um,
right.
yeah, no,
And
and it's filled with actors that I know you like. So I think you would, for sure, you got to see Casino Royale. You can give
yeah,
up after that. Now, I will tell you, it does have a little Lord of the Rings, the Return of the King feel to it, where I'm like, it should have ended, but it's still going on. But
yeah.
it's a good movie. That one's a good one.
I'm questioning their choice for the new one, but we'll see. He kind of
I think he'll be okay.
he's young.
Yeah, but I mean, if you saw him in the movie with Brad Pitt that just came out a year or so ago, and he's on the train, he plays like an assassin, a British assassin. He's got a
Yes, I
little bit of
did.
that. You could see a little
Yeah,
cheekiness. He's gonna probably be a little more playful as Bond. I don't think that's a problem with Craig, is that following him because Craig was so serious and he never stepped out of character. He's and unlike he might be like Roger Moore where you kind of felt sometimes Roger Moore's James Bond was winking at the camera. He's kind of in on some of the
Yeah.
yeah,
silliness, which
yeah.
I really love. When I go back and watch that, that's why I love watching Roger Moore movies. But yeah, I mean, it's the guy that was Kick Ass, the
Yeah.
main character from
Okay.
Kick Ass.
Okay.
He
Okay.
was in Godzilla, and he's been in a ton of stuff. Aaron Taylor. Oh, he's Quicksilver in the Avengers movie Not the
Okay.
X-Men version, but the one with the Scarlet Witch. He plays her brother Quicksilver. So he's going to be the next Bond. So it'll be pretty interesting to see.
Hmm. All right.
Yeah.
I'll have to give that a try. Um, yeah, I'm really, it's really hard for me to accept new actors in roles that I grew up with. Like I have a hard time thinking of anybody else as Superman except for Christopher Reeve. Even though I love Henry Cavill, I just don't see him as Superman.
Oh, he's a great Superman.
Yeah. I mean, I
Well,
enjoy his
how
That's
could
who I
movies.
would like to be if my first book ever goes to film, which that is what my ultimate goal is. I would kill to have him portray the main character.
oh, that'd be cool.
Yeah, yeah, that would be so cool because I think he would pick up some of the essence. It's the look and I could see him with a 1960s haircut and cleaned up in that sort of look, businessman look. So
Is that
Yeah.
something you do? Do you vision like before you're writing the character? Do you kind of put that in your head, or you write the character, then afterwards you're like, oh, this guy would fit what I did? Do
um
you ever write a character based on somebody's?
well, what I write is what I'm picturing in my
Mhm.
head, and then I as I'm looking, I'm seeking out who I would imagine would be the closest to what my mind sees the person as. um yeah, so it yeah, I can't pick somebody and then turn around and write it because it would influence too much my creativity,
Sure.
I think.
Well, I mean,
So
some people have it down to, I mean, they have
yeah,
cards built and printed up, which I think is really cool. But like, here's what the character looks like exactly. And sometimes they'll look like somebody famous, sometimes they don't. But a lot of
yeah,
times when I'm writing, I don't have that in my head. They're the essence of the person, but never the physicality, or rarely the physicality. I try and do more of let the reader, say, okay, well, this
yeah,
person's whatever, but I picture him this way. Somebody else might picture him totally differently, but they have the same vibe.
Yeah.
right. Well, and I get where you're going through. The difference for me in the I always knew that I would be a writer. I've always been writing since I was young, and it was something I enjoyed. Um, my professors and all that seemed to think I had the had what it took to write. They liked what I wrote, so it that kept me going. I just life got in the way, and I waited till I was much older to write. What I didn't expect was that I finally would be allowed to write this my first story, and because it was cloaked in a lot of secrecy for um, well, basically since 1967, I wasn't allowed to talk about it, discuss it with anybody, but it was my family's story. And it was
Oh,
our escape from receiving a death sentence from terrorists. So I, as a young person, learned, and I think that's maybe why I'm always glued with suspense and thrillers and things because I lived it
Mhm.
and uh, firsthand. And it's not pretty, it's terrorizing. But, I finally got the green light about 6 months ago that I could finally, tell people that, it was our story. Hence why I had written it under the pen name to begin with. That was the only way
okay.
I got the go ahead that I could write the story. So 5 years worth of interviewing and putting together uh, and then another 5 years writing it. I took my time because I wanted it to be um, I wanted everything that I could put in there to be as perfect as possible. So it turned out pretty good.
Very
I
cool.
have to
Yeah.
say,
Yeah.
yeah.
Now, do you have a favorite suspense author that you go to, or a favorite book of
Um,
suspense?
I mean, there's so like I was talking to her earlier. I said, please don't ask me names of authors. My first book that I ever read that was, along that lines was of all people, Agatha Christie. I remember
Mm.
reading a bunch of hers back in the day, and it intrigued me. That is There's been several others that yeah, in fact, I had one on my reading list that I've read several of her books was oh I think was it Claire? I don't know, I can't find it right now.
Yeah.
I think her last name was Allen, Claire Allen or something like that. So
Have
but
you ever have you ever read James Rowland?
I've
James
read
Rowland's?
some of his. I've read, I think, two, but it's been years that I've read that.
Were
Um,
they self-contained or were they part of a series? Do you remember?
uh, I don't think the one I read was in a series.
Yeah, so because his first four or five are really good, but they're all individual. And then all of a sudden he starts writing a thing called Sigma Force, and then every book
Don't
is
diss
double.
Sigma Force,
I'm not
man.
dissing it. I'm just saying his standalone stuff is really good. And I like the fact that he could jump around because they're so different. One's in the
Yeah,
ice, one's in the Amazon, one's in the caverns, deep in caves and stuff.
right.
And each time it was totally different characters. So I totally get Sigma Force is fun, and I know why he's doing it because that's what we're trained to do is to write sequels so people keep coming back and reading the stories
Mhm.
and stuff. But
Yeah.
And
he's a
sometimes
guy I
I
really
wish
think
they
that does
wouldn't
well.
do that though, because you some of the books end up, in my opinion, get a little, even though they're good, and when you get a prominent author like that, you will get the return business, so to speak.
Hmm.
But there's nothing like having that book that is so tight that you can't repeat it. It's like getting that sequel movie that you go and you go, okay.
Yeah.
I could have watched this at home.
The
That's
second
Yeah.
Reacher movie.
yeah.
Yeah, that one was
Yeah.
terrible. So and that's
Oh,
another one where we're talking about characters not fitting the vibe, the actors not fitting the vibe of the character. I mean, I understand Tom Cruise had the attitude, but he just couldn't be the character. That's why I think the TV show
right,
worked so much better.
right.
So
Now he uh oh shoot, what's the name of the movie he just did that was it was
the Mission
they lived in
Impossible.
that glass house that and oh no, it's not Mission Impossible. It's not too long ago. But it was they had the home was computer run, and uh it was pretty interesting as far as how he could go back and forth, and I'm
I'm trying to
like I
think of
said,
what Tom Cruise because it seems like all he's been doing is Mission Impossible, and then he did The Mummy.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
trying to think of what else he
yeah,
was doing. He did that
he
CIA movie where he's doing the flying, but that one wouldn't have a house like that. Uh,
yeah, it was kind of out, and there was like dunes and different things, and he made his own little secret hideaway place where he got grass to grow and things like that.
hmm.
It was kind of weird, but it was pretty interesting watching it. But um, so generally, I mean, what are you more in tune to um, fantasy stuff
Oh, I
or
write horror and but I read everything and I have since I was a kid, so I
yeah,
step outside of the genre all the time. I'm not really one to be stuck in one place, but my motto is everything's horror. So even if I'm writing something that's not horror, it'll end up being it at some point. So
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, my son, that's all he loves to watch, follow, that sort of thing. He would have all those names down, I tell you. And I look at him sometimes, I'm going, are you normal? Because of some of the stuff that he likes, and what he finds humorous.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's
Yeah. Yeah, that's
when
any horror fan. Everybody
huh?
gets that. That's with any horror fan. People are like, "Are you normal? Is there something wrong with you?"
Right, right. But it's interesting. That's the one thing, you know, I just kind of fell into finding out about Texas AuthorCon, and one of the things that Merrill had said when we talked at first was that he really wanted to grow this so that you had authors from all genres.
Mhm.
Mhm.
And so, he said, please stick with it, and so that's one thing. And but the thing was that it's the people are, people go, oh, horror with it. Some of the nicest authors I have ever met have been at this conference, and it's been a lot of fun, and it's been a lot of fun watching them interact and supporting each other, and the way they interact with the people that come has been fantastic.
Yep.
So I'm looking forward to this year and seeing with the guest or guest award recipient and all that. That should be
Yeah,
pretty
that's going to
cool.
be cool. So
Yeah.
tell us about your writing style. Are you a plotter or a pantser?
Um, I'm define pantser. What?
Well, I think you already answered this question sort of when you said you did research for 5 years and
Oh,
then
yeah.
Yeah.
then you
Yeah,
wrote
you're
for
right.
5 years. That one book is specifically a pantser is basically you sit down and you just write by the seat of your pants, you know.
Yeah.
Like me, I'm a
Yeah.
panic writer. I had told you
Yeah.
that. I just like, oh,
I
I
do
got
a
a story
little
to
of both.
write.
Yeah. Well, with the first book, it was a little bit different in the
Mhm.
sense of when you're writing something that is a true story, um, in order to really understand the characters and what brought them to from the terrorist side, I had to dive in and really study the movement and all that went, what brought them to become um, the Tupamaros in Uruguay, and so um, what brought their movement forward, and so that's what a lot of that was as well. So um, it wasn't an overnight thing. So in order to understand them, I had to read a lot about them, had to read a lot about actions that they were involved in, and it made me understand more, and also finding out how they worked, their anonymity, because it was really weird. They operated uh, in cells, and each cell would have anywhere from 4 to 5 people or so, ish. And each one didn't know who the other one was, and they didn't know who was in charge. So that way, if they were ever caught, you didn't divulge the rest of the group. It
Sure.
was,
Mhm.
you couldn't, and that's why it was so hard to catch them. It was absolutely intriguing the way um, it was, and so that was the difference when you're writing something like this, where it wasn't just, oh, this family got a death sentence. You really had to understand the depth of it, and the depth of it was, you know, when he was discovered, uh, my father had a sting set up in his office, and it was a regular brawl, if you can imagine that, in his office with things crashing, breaking, whatever, as the police were getting him. The Tupamaros were infiltrated everywhere. You had lawyers, doctors, policemen, professors in the college, trying to weed out and get students, because they wanted people that were educated. So that way they could go out and get these incredible jobs that they could slide in and get information, high up information, those sorts of things, and embezzle
Yeah.
Sure.
little things like that, make a little money for the cause.
Yeah.
So yeah, I lost you somewhere. But so when he was fired, the afterwards, it made him known to the public, so his anonymity was broken.
Yeah.
So that was what angered the cause and the people that were there, the Tupamaros, and they realized that my father wasn't the type of person that bent down to their threats. So we were, the entire family was given death sentence. And you talk about, like in the movies where, I mean, kidnapping attempts were left and right, with my dad, with me. I mean, they're chasing him down the streets. He's rolling over hoods of cars, getting,
Mhm.
breaking in between traffic and stuff. I mean, you
Oh,
can't
wow.
make this stuff up. I mean, it
Yeah.
really happened. And it was insane,
Yeah.
absolutely insane.
Yeah. So
So
that's this book here. I can't say that. Is it Carrasco?
it's Carrasco 67.
Okay.
That
Uh,
Carrasco was the suburb that we lived in.
okay.
And yeah, so
Yeah. Yeah, I
yeah,
remember seeing your display at last year's AuthorCon, and it was just very eye-catching because of the color of the covers. Um,
yeah.
it's
And
actually
then I
very,
went the other way.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Uh, but yeah, this one is it's really it's simplistic, but it's
Yeah,
definitely eye-catching
yeah,
on that. And so this is a suspense thriller, all
yes,
about your family's experience, which is very fascinating.
yeah, yeah. And it isn't written like
A memoir or something.
A
It's
June and Leave It to Beaver thing. It's
yeah,
written with pure day by day, the suspense, the story of when it all started happening. And just I was point blank following exactly what happened, until they were able to get us out. One time I had a guy leave a review and he goes, "I don't buy this one bit."
okay.
And but all my other ones have been absolutely positive. But and the reason why is, he was thinking that, you know, things like this don't happen, but they do.
Yeah, they
It's just
do.
people are out of fear. They don't, it's like us. You're told never to discuss it. The Uruguayan military had to step in. And
Oh,
so because it got too big. And when you have double checkpoints and neighborhood cut off, and you got guards everywhere, I mean, inside your house, on your roofs, encircling, everybody having a bodyguard, having to check your car for bombs. This wasn't toy stuff. This was pretty intense.
yeah,
But
I can imagine. Yeah.
yeah, but back in those days, you couldn't just hop on a plane and leave. Nowadays, if there was an emergency situation like this, they, the government would push papers and get you on that plane and get you out.
Yeah.
Back then, our passports had just expired, and we had just arrived, and it was time to renew, and it took months before we could get them renewed. So we were sitting ducks,
Wow,
um,
that's
being ready to
crazy.
be picked off. So yeah.
Yeah,
So
so that one you'll have, and we were talking a little bit before we started recording that your other one is it Let Me Go?
yeah, Let Me Go. It is also this one is more of a bit of a psychological, a little bit of um let's put it this way, a little smidge of creepy terror type thing. It not much, but there is a storyline in there of something that just is kind of like it's shocking, more macabre that will come up, but so it's a psychological suspense as well, and it follows through this girl that had some friends, and they were in neighboring boarding schools, and met that way, and she ended up marrying one of the people that she had known, and um then as it evolves, she starts realizing that his parents are not exactly your apple pie people. They have some dark revelations to show. Um, the the situation becomes very controlling, mind controlling. Um, some abuse sets in. I don't want to give away the big thing, which is
Yeah,
like
definitely don't.
unbelievable. Yeah. I was like giddy writing it, because it was like, oh my God, oh my God. I wish I was reading this for me reading a book, but it was absolutely a blast to write. And then she ends up um uh taking off, and trying to run away where no one can find her. And then it's the hunt to find her, and then I don't want to say anything else, but
Yeah,
there's a whole lot of depths to it, to where there is a lot of suspense in it. There's a lot of cat and mouse type thing.
mm,
So it it was a blast to write, I have to say. And the next three chapters, the last three chapters, are going to be the best. I mean, I already got it kind of plotted out what it's going to
what's gonna
say, and
happen? Nice.
yeah, so it's going to be fun. I think it's going to hold its own pretty good,
Yeah,
as the first book has. So
that's
yeah.
good. Yeah, and that one's set to release just after AuthorCon in August, right?
Yes, yes, yeah. Unfortunately, but that's the way it is. Sometimes
Yep.
it takes a little bit of time to get
Do
it
you
all.
self-publish or are you doing it through a
I
company?
do it through 40 Day Publishing, which has been excellent to work with. So yes, it is the self-publishing indie author, whatever you want to call it. Um, I got some advice a long time ago to uh, go that route versus
I was gonna
for a
say
lot
something
of
you could
various
do is you
reasons.
could throw a couple chapters together, put it in a little mini book, chat book or something, and have that at the event to whet people's appetite, and
Yeah.
then
Yeah,
they'll be able to go, pick it up, and then however you want to do that. But that's just something I've seen that done before, where people will put out a couple chapters when they don't have the whole thing ready at an event. So just an idea.
okay.
Thought I'd throw it out there. You
Yeah, that wouldn't be a
can't do
bad
it
idea.
as it's not as easy to do if you're doing it through a publishing house and they control everything. But if you're controlling it, you can do whatever you want to do. So,
Right, right.
and
And
I
are
think,
they actually putting a cover on it, or just,
yeah, a little something, a sample
yeah,
cover,
yeah.
or maybe it's the cover of the book, and then they have different phrases on the front where it says, introducing this book or whatever, however you want to word it, but just to let people know that this is coming out. And then the back, of course, would have all your information and when to expect the book to be released and how they can find the book and links and all that kind of things, QR
True.
codes, that kind of stuff.
Right.
And is
Right.
the Tom Cruise movie you're thinking of Oblivion?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's a futuristic movie too. So it's
Yes.
got that's where all the science and the Earth is dead and he's trying to
Right.
bring
Right.
everything back. So
I've
all
only
right.
watched it 3 times, but who can remember? That's what I'm telling you. Don't ask me a title. It's just, if they had signed it a number, I would have remembered it. But it's just the titles, and my husband can just spout, movies left and right, who the producer was, all this other data, and I'm
Yeah.
like, okay, I just want to know, the action part of it. That's what I'm interested in.
Yeah.
So,
Give me the action. Now, when you're writing, do you listen to music? And if you do, what kind of music?
well, I don't usually listen to music when I'm writing. A lot of times I'll have, some noise in the background, that sort of thing. But music, I listen to all kinds of stuff from the soft stuff to, I'm old school. I like Grand Funk Railroad, Emerson, Lake and Palmer,
Hmm.
Deep Purple, uh, even what do you call it? Oh gosh, what's her name? I'm blanking out. Of course, what is that? Tried to go to rehab. What's her girl? Um,
Oh,
Oh, Amy something,
yeah,
Amy
Winehouse. Yes,
yeah.
yeah.
Winehouse. Yeah.
It's just a variety of stuff. I mean, I like a lot of stuff, so but if I listen to music while I'm writing, then it distracts me. I'm so easily distracted that I that I start, singing along with the songs. I did try that, and it had to go off so
Yeah,
real quickly. So but
that's funny.
the as far as the the writing and all that, it's one of those things that if you don't think about what you're needing to write, and if you take away deadlines and the pressures and stuff and just focus on it from the enjoyment factor,
Hmm.
and writing it like it it just flows. It doesn't It's when everybody starts putting all the deadlines and the have tos, and you're thinking about all that stuff, then you're going to shut down. And I haven't I I don't want to say I've never, but I never have had trouble writing, just because I try to write from the standpoint of I'm enjoying what I'm doing.
Hmm.
Mm,
So it and if I'm done for the day, that's part of the problem. A lot of writers will keep trying and forcing themselves to write. you know write until you feel that energy, because it is giving a lot of yourself. So when that starts mellowing out, just you know save it and stop, take a break, come back the next day, and then start fresh. And you don't get those roadblocks like a lot of authors will get. And that's part of the thing, is they're trying to write through when they've reached that point of creativity that um, where you need to take a break.
Hmm.
And
yeah.
so that's one of the things for me that works well, is doing that, just constant, you know
Knowing when you've had enough for the day.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So besides obviously selling books, what are you looking forward to the most about Texas AuthorCon?
This one, the first two was more caught up with getting to know, how they operated and all that stuff. This time around, I really want to get around and get to know a lot of the authors myself and really make more of a connection. Last time I felt like I needed to kind of stay in my space and not, and so I visited with the authors that were around me, which was fantastic. But um, I'd like to be able to go and see, all the other rows that have,
Yeah.
yeah, because there's a lot out there, and make that connection. And because that's one of the things. It doesn't matter what you write. The fact is that you all have that same commonality where you like to write, you have these ideas that run in your head that you want to put to paper, and your everyday person doesn't understand that mindset,
Yeah.
and it takes people that read a lot. And you know I hold on to so many books and stuff, and that um sometimes I have to pull my nightstand out because a lot of them have toppled over and fallen behind. Oh gosh. And I have been known to rebuy books I've read before. Like, I'm in it and I'm going, I recognize the storyline. And then I realize, yeah, you've read this before.
That's so that's we were having a little conversation before we started recording, and that's why I like Goodreads. Not only because I like to leave reviews, but there have been a few books that I read like maybe back in the 90s,
Yeah,
and I've just come across it. Like I'm a big thrift books buyer for the older books, and I'll start reading it and I'm like, wait, this sounds really familiar. Um,
yeah,
so for those books that, I buy now, I can log that in my Goodreads. So when I go to like say, oh, I want to read it, or I'm currently reading it, it will tell me I've already read it. And I'll be like, oh,
right,
well.
right. And I've been even listening to some of the stuff, when we take trips. My husband's real big on audiobooks. And
Mhm.
so we'll have those going. And as a matter of fact, my first book, I'm in the process of uh I'm listening to the recordings right now, so we're putting that one to audio. And I'm in the last stages of getting a lot of stuff approved so that we can get that to go
Nice.
live, so to speak. So that'll be good.
That's exciting. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And so and talking with some producers and stuff right now, and working towards getting it put to script and all that, so that way
Oh,
we can maybe work a little further into getting
getting
it
it
down
on
the
the.
road on film. Yeah.
Oh, that's
So
cool.
yeah, it's
So
exciting.
where can people find your books?
On Amazon. And so it right now, that's pretty much where I've been focusing on, is just leaving it there. You can go online, I believe, on Barnes and Noble. At least that's what I've been told, but don't hold me to that. It's supposed to be set up, but there's been some glitches. But yeah, down the road I'm gonna branch out. But right now, since I'm new at this, I'm trying to keep, my fires a little more contained
Yeah.
instead of spreading myself thin, until I'm more the marketing thing is a beast. That's all I can say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now,
It's
will
a
your yeah, so will your new book be also under the same pen name, Elaine Brown, or are you
yes,
gonna write? Yeah.
yes.
Okay.
Yeah, it was going to be too confusing at this point,
Yeah.
and it's part of me thinks, oh, man, I should have waited, you know 4 years later than when I did, publishing it, because then I could have possibly put it out there. But that's just to give you an idea of the fear that was instilled when you live what we lived. The we had Frank Mitrione also played a big part in there, and he's the only person whose real name is written in the book.
Oh,
And
wow.
he was former CIA, FBI, all that. And he was in Uruguay at the time teaching counterinsurgency techniques, which is a polite way of torture interrogating people.
Oh, geez.
So yeah, I know, in the military. So but it, when you're dealing with war and things like that, it's a whole different ball game.
Yep.
But so between all of them, we weren't even allowed to talk about it within the family. They said, just get out of the habit. It was as if it never happened. So that way you didn't risk having someone overhear your conversation,
Yeah.
because they warned us that there would be a vendetta and people would be searching for us for years. And so at this point, I finally got to talk to my dad, and I said, okay, realistically, you're turning 92.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
key players are probably dead, or they did pass vendettas down,
Oh, yeah,
Mhm.
for sure.
but at this point, well, at least I'm hoping uh that we're good. So
Yeah. Well, hopefully so.
yeah,
But
Should
yeah,
we
yeah.
should we shadow your box?
your face, put your
Yeah, change
pixelate
the
your
voice up.
face.
It's okay. I honestly think that we're, nowadays they got bigger fish to fry than coming after us,
Yeah.
uh
Hopefully.
yeah, yeah. So it it was something, that's for sure. It
Yeah.
but
Sounds like it. It sounds very interesting.
Yeah, I've
And
had some amazing reviews, just um across the board. So it's been pretty thrilling. And I I even had another author, and this is the funny thing. She had one of uh she had written a book of a personal story, and it was turned to film. And so I found out through my publisher that um, she about her, and she was reading my book and was really amazed by it. And so she left a review, and so I went that day and asked her to be friends with me on Facebook.
oh, wow.
And she had put a review on Amazon and everything. And so that's the thing with Amazon: if you leave a review, and you've friended a person, they will remove your review. And so
Yeah.
I had friended her the day she had put the review on, hadn't spoken to her before, didn't know her. And
That's
so they
crazy.
took a fantastic review off. So, for other authors out there, um, wait till after review is
Yeah.
set in stone before you go and ask them to be friends.
Yeah, that's
So
for sure.
or-
So yeah, we'll have a link to your Amazon author page in the description of the video. Um, it's really been interesting talking to you.
Mhm.
I mean, I saw the cover of the book and I really didn't know. I was like, oh, it's a suspense thriller. And I like those kinds of things. I'm, big into James Rollins and,
yeah.
I like his
There's a
books.
lot of meaning in the cover that when you read the book, you'll realize it. And the the plane is basically signifying their escape. And so that it was, they escaped by plane, and Carrasco was the neighborhood that we lived in. 1967 was the year that the worst of it went down. And the rest of the title I'm going to leave for you to find out what the meaning of that is, but there
Okay.
is great meaning to that. So yeah,
All
so
right.
that's
Yeah, cool. Well, it's been really interesting. And thank you so much for joining us. Looking forward to seeing you in July.
Mhm.
So thanks for coming on the show, and we'll see
well,
all of
thank
you.
you.
We'll also have a link to the Eventbrite, so you can pick up your tickets for Texas AuthorCon and Book Festival. All right,
All
thank
right.
you.
Thank you very much.
Take it easy.
All right, you too.